Part 57. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 561. Han Das-han looked at Pei Zinyuan, who was expressionless, in disbelief. He was so afraid that he couldn't fall asleep until midnight last night, so he naturally got up late during the day. Thinking that Mr. Bai only gave him 2 days, and he didn't even have time to eat breakfast before he was ready to go to the police to withdraw the case. While he was dreaming of getting the remaining 9 million, the police came first. As soon as he opened his mouth, he gave him a big bag. Pei Zinyuan actually reported to the police that he deliberately killed his own father. How did this girl know? Even when he was sleeping last night, he specially gave himself psychological hints, fearing that he would accidentally say it when he fell asleep and talked in his sleep. Comrade policeman, this is definitely Pei Zinyuan's slander. How could I possibly kill my father? But the police are much more experienced than him. Although there are few cases of patricide by sons, they are not unheard of. She said without leaving any trace, before you returned to your residence yesterday evening, besides buying wine and snacks, did you buy anything else? Han Das-han suddenly panicked. Have you actually found this out? When he came to his senses, his wrists sank, and the coldness of the metal was directly conveyed to his heart. No, I didn't do anything. The police had already determined that there was definitely something going on here, and responded coldly, then let the evidence speak for itself. Just when Han Das-han was escorted out of the hospital with his head covered and both hands on his hands, Bai Shenjiao also got the news. The valuable teacup in his hand was smashed to pieces. It's something that fails to accomplish anything but fails to accomplish anything. The assistant who came in to report lowered his head and did not dare to make a sound, and even breathed softly. You said it was Han Jiao's friend named Pei Zinyuan who reported the crime? The master died last night and he didn't report the crime. It took a whole night before he reported the crime. How long is her reflex arc? Before she reported the crime, did she tell anyone someone should contact her? The assistant lowered his head a little lower and said, I'm going to check it out right now. Check carefully, I want to find out who is trying to ruin my business. As the last word fell, another teacup fell to the ground. The assistant suppressed his annoyance and left the tea room. He was originally waiting for Han Das-han to finish the things assigned by his boss and come over to collect the balance check. After he left, the people he arranged would be in place. Even if the police suspected it again, Han Das-han would have died in an accident. Everything was going well at first. But now, go to jail to silence yourself? Then he won't have to come out after he goes in. Now we can only hope that Han Das-han did this so that the police could not find any evidence. Otherwise, Han Das-han, in a hurry, told the story that his boss instigated him to kill, and his assistant, who was also at the scene, would not be able to escape. Perhaps the boss will even use him as a scapegoat. Now the culprit is the person who may have reminded Pei Zinyuan, and he is also itching to hate it. Looking for it, he wanted to see what the purpose of that person's sudden intervention in this matter was. Asterisk. The culprit will just go out. The brand event started at 10:30, and Zhang Lingzi didn't like to step in. After putting on makeup and changing clothes, she rushed there with her team in advance. At 10 o'clock sharp, Baikan Plaza opens on time. Everyone who came here to shop on the weekend immediately filed in. There are also some older people who are not very star-chasing when they see the long queue in front of the Shanyu's Haiheng main store. Is there any promotion in this store today? The staff member of the square who was asked pointed to the life-size portrait standing at the door of the store. Today Zhang Lingzi, the spokesperson of Shanyu's Haiheng, will be on site to support the brand. Those in line should be her fans. Zhang Lingzi? Never heard of her. She's very famous. Absolutely. Oh, I used to have a favorite celebrity, that Su Qingmei. I didn't expect that she was a duplicity. I saw what was exposed on the internet, and it really made me sick. I finally understand these celebrities, all thanks to the packaging is fake from head to toe. From now on, I don't plan to like these celebrities anymore, just watch their TV movies. The staff member who was forced to accept some complaints said, "Well, actually I am also a fan of John Lingzi. Not to mention other people, I think John Lingzi is quite real." These fans lined up outside early in the morning, and John Lingzi even had someone drive them away. Here are the hot drinks and food. If I didn't have work on hand, I'd also like to go get a hot drink. It's all about saving face. How much does a cup of hot drink cost? Celebrities make a lot of money. But the hot drink John Lingzi handed out came from Yan Er's family. A cup is about 20 or 30 cups. This morning, I must have given out nearly 500 cups, and there is still a lot of food. Is it still being issued now? The staff kept smiling and pointed in the direction of the drink cart. Go and have a look. There are still many people asking about this, some of them don't want to pay attention, and some of them are planning to go there and join in the fun when the event starts. Soon, a photo of John Lingzi endorsing Shanyu's Haiheng also appeared on the large display screen in the atrium of the square. People passing by couldn't help but look up. The breath paused subconsciously. The photos are so beautiful, what does it look like in person? You'll be able to see it later. There were so many people on site when I came here just now, and there must be more people now. We had to squeeze in before. This screen will be broadcast live later. If you can't squeeze in, come here and watch. Let's go, there are many people around us going to Shanyu's Haiheng. So when John Lingzi walked to the scene through the specially opened passage, she was faced with a sea of people. Fan Yao, who was following behind, said, "Okay, there are many people." Lu Zhengzheng patted her arm and said, "Calm down. Fan Yao, Sister Zhengzheng, you seem to have turned around." Lu Zhengzheng, if you see through it but don't tell it off, we are still good sisters. Fan Yao, oh. John Lingzi walked to the makeshift stage with her skirt in hand, raised her hand and waved to everyone who looked over. "Zixi. Zixi, thank you for the hot drink, it's delicious." John Lingzi took the microphone handed over by the host, glanced at the camera, and then looked at the bustling crowd below the stage. She noticed that someone was squeezing forward without a trace, and she swallowed back the words she was going to say hello first. There was a hint of imperceptible majesty in his voice. "Friends at the back, please don't push forward. There will be danger if there are too many people." The sound is diffused through the microphone, ensuring that it reaches the ears of everyone present. Some people were obedient and stood still and did not push forward. But some people turned a deaf ear to this warning and still moved forward quietly. But while squeezing in, I suddenly felt as if I had deserted in class and been caught on the spot by the patrolling dean. Still crowded. A few people subconsciously raised their heads and met a pair of eyes that looked towards them accurately, and their scalps suddenly exploded. Have a good sleep in 1 second. End of chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 562. At this time, not only those who quietly squeezed forward and were caught on the spot became more honest and well behaved, but also the others stopped their excitement that wanted to vent out, and tried their best to be good children in front of Zixi. The surrounding shopping mall staff who were seconded to be in charge of security also quietly breathed a sigh of relief. As a large and well-known shopping mall in the imperial capital, their mall has held many similar brand events and celebrity meetings before. Naturally, it is no stranger to fans as a group, and has seen many fans face their favorite celebrities. The craze of the time. Even experienced events that went out of control and were cancelled on the spot because fans were too excited and fanatical, and celebrities could not control the venue. Originally, it seemed that the celebrity who came today was a young girl. The scale of the event was so large and so many people came to the event. They must not relax during the event. If there are unstable factors, they must be stopped in time. Unexpectedly, the first thing he did when he came on stage was to show off his momentum and stabilize the people in the audience. His ability to control the stage was unparalleled. With this good start, they can anticipate the activities for the next hour, and they can feel much more relaxed. Some people were standing next to the fans and heard the whispers of these little girls and their friends. It's worth my special trip this time. Zixi has changed a lot from before. She was beautiful before, but she still feels a little impetuous. Now her temperament is simply outstanding. I felt Zixi glanced at me just now. I felt it too, and I even forgot to breathe at that moment. I really look better in person than in the photos and videos. It's so beautiful that it seems to be glowing. The way Zixi stands on the stage makes me feel like she is the center of the world. The staff member couldn't help but listen to the chat of these little girls while working. Is this a bit exaggerated? While he was busy maintaining order, he couldn't help but look up at the stage. It wasn't until a colleague on the side patted his shoulder that he suddenly came back to his senses, with an uncontrollable blush on his young face. Turns out it's really not an exaggeration. A question from an audience member who was drawn came from the big screen, which was also crowded with people. The audience was wearing a complete set of Shan Yu's Haiheng's clothes and was carrying a valuable bag. At first glance, he was a fan of the little rich woman. The question asked here is also related to clothes. I like this outfit on Zixi very much, but I haven't seen it in Shan Yu's Haiheng's flagship model this season. Is it a special collection? It is the work of a rising designer from Shan Yu's Haiheng that I selected myself. It is not among the main models of this season. I think you have all seen the main models in previous promotional photos and posters, and it may be awkward to wear them again. Aesthetic fatigue. Doesn't it feel refreshing now? I think it's not inferior to the main sets, but it's a little bit unsightly. But seeing that Zixi looks so good in it, I think it would be a good idea to buy it for collection. Thank you for your support to me and Shan Yu's Haiheng. Shen Chuiao, who was always following the progress of the show backstage, reached out to call the head of the brand department and asked about the emerging designer Zhang Lingzi mentioned. The clothes she sent to her cousin-in-law this morning had gone through the preliminary selection before they were presented to the rightful owner. When she saw that her cousin-in-law had chosen the outfit she was wearing after looking at the photos, she specifically asked if she had chosen it. Wrong. When she took all the clothes over, this dress was the first one to pick it up and try it on. Originally, she felt that although the design and tailoring of this dress were very good, the color scheme and the embroidery patterns on it always felt a bit dark. She had tried it on models before and couldn't get the effect, so it was not chosen as the season's main model. But when she saw her cousin-in-law coming out of the cloakroom after getting dressed, the first thing that came to her mind was, sure enough, people choose clothes too. These ignorant fans come here. Even though they know that the clothes they wear on their cousin-in-law will not be effective, they are still willing to buy and collect them when they see someone can wear them so stunningly. Has the designer named Guo Kikai been transferred to the third team to help? Transfer the person back and continue independent design. Sometimes it's not that people can't design good-looking clothes, but that the clothes they design are suitable for them. The people who wear it are asking too much, and now this is an example. When Guo Kikai received the transfer, he was helping to move sample materials and didn't react for a while. After being reminded by a colleague, I learned about the brand event held at the head office today. Their spokesperson for Shan Yu's Haiheng appeared at the event and chose to wear the dress she designed that was not selected as the main model. Taking advantage of the break, she turned on the live broadcast of the brand event. When she saw the tall and straight figure under the camera, showing off all the advantages of the outfit she designed, she bit her fingers to hold back the urge to scream. Impulse. Continuing to read, seeing that man's every frown and smile attracting the attention of everyone present, the inspiration in his mind completely exploded. Su Lingyan and two little sisters from the same dormitory walked into the mall arm in arm. There are too many people in this shopping mall today. I just passed by a few little girls, and they seemed to be discussing what celebrities there seemed to be in the mall today. No wonder, but we don't chase stars, so we won't join in the fun. Su Lingyan was about to nod. She also didn't like crowds joining in the fun, so she couldn't agree more with this proposal. Just as he took off the hat on his head, he looked up and faced the huge display screen in the atrium in front of him. Suddenly, his mouth opened slightly and his eyes widened a bit. "Anan, why don't you leave? Let's go buy a cup of milk tea first." I want to go to the event," Su Lingyan said and pointed at the display screen. The other two people were stunned for a moment and looked in the direction of Su Lingyan's finger. "Is this Zhang Lingzi? I remember and watched this live broadcast in the dormitory last time. How about we go and have a look together?" "That's okay, the three of us came together, so of course we'll act together. It's just that the event was already halfway through when they arrived, and when they arrived, they could only stand at the end of the bustling line of fans. Coupled with the fact that from time to time someone would raise their hands and wave banners and light signs when they got excited, the three of them stood at the end and could not even see anyone, so they could listen to the sounds coming from the live speakers. This was not clearly seen on the big screen just now. So many people. If it doesn't work, then..." Before the word withdraw could be uttered, the two of them saw that Su Lingyan next to them, who usually didn't pay much attention to entertainment news, was still trying to stand on tiptoes, with his mouth pursed and his face full of persistence, and they immediately swallowed their words. It's rare to see this girl paying so much attention to the celebrity named Zhang Lingzi, so they might as well risk their lives to accompany the gentleman. Now we come to the last part of this event next. 3 lucky fans will come on stage to play an interactive game with us, Ling 11. Su Lingyan looked at the hands raised in front of him, pursed his lips and raised them high. The two friends on the side suddenly widened their eyes in shock. Is this still the social fear of their dormitory? The energy of chasing stars is so powerful. In the dark tea room, the huge LCD screen TV was playing the live broadcast of the Shanyu's Haihang brand event at the moment. Looking at the figure on the screen, whether it was appearance or temperament, he could easily kill all the women he had ever had. Bai Shenjiao was stunned. But there was no coveting or admiration at all, only gnashing of teeth. Zhang Lingzi. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 563. 3 beams of light projected from above swayed irregularly among the bustling crowd below the stage. Most people are silently praying that the light beam will finally fall on their heads. It is rare to have face-to-face contact with idols, and you may even have the opportunity to shake hands. Just thinking about it makes me excited. There are only a few sociophobic people who keep their heads down silently for fear of being picked up by the beam. Zhang Lingzi's eyes were also moving along with the beam, and she was responsible for shouting stop. Her eyes gently passed through the hundreds of pairs of eyes that read choose me. She suddenly paused when she suddenly met a pair of familiar deer eyes. Looking at Su Lingyan's right hand raised high, he curled his lips without leaving any trace. She still remembered that this girl was a bit shy. It seemed that people had become more cheerful after going to college, and they dared to raise their hands in such activities. Then she naturally wants to make this girl's wishes come true as much as possible. So just when the beam of light was about to pass over Su Lingyan's head again, Zhang Lingzi picked the right moment and said, stop. The 3 fast-moving light beams suddenly stopped and landed on the heads of the 3 lucky spectators. The 3 people who were favored by lucky received envious looks from the people around them, and after unanimously looking up at the beam of light above their heads, They couldn't wait to get ready to go on stage. Su Ling'an and his two roommates looked surprised at this moment. They came just after the event was halfway through, and they were standing at the very back. They never thought about the possibility of becoming a lucky audience. In the end, the youngest one actually became one of the 3 lucky viewers. Anan, hurry up, I see the 2 in front are getting ready to go on stage, you should hurry up too. We'll take pictures of you down below. Su Ling'an was still in a daze. She was a little unsure whether her sister had chosen her specifically, or whether she was just so lucky this time. He was pushed back to consciousness by his roommate, took a deep breath and walked to the stage through the separated passage with the envious eyes of the people around him. After the 3 lucky little girls arrived on the stage, they stood side by side under the command of the host, with their faces flushed with excitement and nervousness. After getting the microphone, I briefly introduced myself. It was Su Ling'an's turn. Her 2 friends in the audience were a little worried that the youngest of them would be too nervous to speak. When someone took the microphone and spoke, they suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. I feel like our youngest is more stable than the first 2. Indeed, you can see that the 2 people in front were so excited when they greeted Zhang Lingzi. The youngest sister's voice was much more natural than theirs. It's funny, Zhang Lingzi even touched our youngest's head. The 2 little girls on the stage saw their idol touching the head of the last person who came up. They were a little envious, but they didn't think much about it. They guessed that they were getting this extra treatment because they were standing closer. Tong Yu and Lu Zhengzheng, who were staying backstage, knew that this was not the case at all. It was just their own artists who wanted to touch it. However, they did not expect that Su Ling'an would actually sneak into the crowd of fans in the audience. Lu Zhengzheng held the lunch menu in her hand. Sister Tong, do you want to add another place to the lunch list? Come on, Tong Yu nodded after hesitating for less than a second. It's rare for the 2 sisters to meet each other by chance. There will be no outsiders for dinner later, so it's okay to eat together. Lu Zhengzheng arranged and adjusted it skillfully. Just when Zhang Lingzi was playing an interactive mini-game with 3 lucky spectators, they were in the police station on the other side. Han Das-han looked at the purchase record of high-concentration alcohol and his father's autopsy report before his eyes, and slumped down on the interrogation chair with despair on his face. He doesn't know people at all. When he was getting ready to take action last night, he only thought of a stupid way to mix high-concentration alcohol into wine and drink it. It's okay if no one suspects this. Even the doctor was only focused on saving people last night and didn't even bother to care whether the old man on the rescue table drank alcohol or not. But once suspicion arises, the evidence cannot be better found. The payment records on his mobile phone were all kept, and the pharmacy was also monitored to monitor the alcohol he bought. He stuffed the used alcohol bottle under the bed where he lived, and his fingerprints were on it. All this evidence could kill him. Tell me, why did you kill your biological father? The police officer responsible for the interrogation actually already has a direction in mind, but he still has to let the person in front of him speak out. But Han Das-han felt as if his soul had drifted out of his body, without any reaction at all. It wasn't until the table in front of him was slammed with a loud bang that his soul was knocked back. Han Das-han, tell the truth. I hate my father. I have been scolded since I was a child, and I have been scolded at every turn. I am already over 30 and have not even married a wife. It is all because his reputation in our hometown is almost ruined. No one wants to marry me. Shouldn't I hate him? He has ruined my life. Police officer in charge of interrogation. He could see that the hatred in Han Das-han's heart was real. It's better to have such a father than not, but no matter what, he shouldn't kill people because of this. That's not the only reason. You didn't expect that there was your own reason for this? Your sister Han Jiaojiao should be in a worse situation than you at home, but she chose to leave the family and work hard, and you chose to directly kill the person who was holding you back. Biological father. Hearing these words that almost tore off his fig leaf, Han Das-han subconsciously lowered his head to hide the embarrassment on his face. Another person walked into the interrogation room. Don't talk about him, tell the truth about the motive of the murder. You didn't hate your biological father just last night. Tell me, what prompted you to make the decision to kill? Or was there someone who deliberately instigated you before this? That last sentence made Han Das-han's spine stiffen suddenly. Subconsciously, I looked up and saw the person coming up with a pair of penetrating eyes. He suddenly felt that his whole being had been seen through, and he could no longer think of any luck in his heart. Yesterday evening, I left Peizinyuan and went to see someone. A few minutes later, there was another crumpled bearer check on the table in the interrogation room. Send people over now and summon Bai Shenjiao and his assistant. Asterisk. Zhang Lingzi returned to the backstage from the stage after the event. She took the mobile phone handed over by Tong Yu and was about to send a message to Su Ling'an when she saw a message sent by Shen Yunqing a quarter of an hour ago. Bai Shenjiao was summoned, and everything is going well so far. There is a certain difference between summons and arrest. A summons means that the person is only a suspect and cannot be convicted yet. And it is not difficult for Bai Shenjiao, or even the Bai family where Bai Shenjiao lives, to find a scapegoat. Not to mention that the Bai family also maintains a group of lawyers known as jackals. But fortunately, neither Zhang Lingzi nor Shen Yunqing thought that Bai Shenjiao himself could be beaten to death with just one charge of abetting murder. Their initial plan was to knock on the mountains to shock the tigers, and to attack the east and west. End of chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 564. Su Ling'an was about to leave, holding the small gift that her sister had handed to him after winning first place in the interactive mini-game, when the phone in her pocket vibrated. She took it out and clicked on the message. She stopped immediately, with a look of confusion on her face. The two friends were searching for the best-rated restaurant in the mall on their mobile phones. As they walked, they noticed that one person was missing. When they turned around, they saw that the youngest was already several steps behind them. As they stepped back, they shouted, "Anan, what's wrong? Not leaving?" Su Ling'an raised his head and met the eyes of his two roommates. "My sister just sent me a message. She was still in the mall and asked me if I wanted to go over for dinner." Sister, the eyes of the two people listening suddenly lit up, and they directly ignored the still in Su Ling'an's words. They only thought of the rich sister who came to the school to find the youngest a few days ago and packed a lot of delicious snacks for them. Is there any need to worry about this? It's such a rare coincidence, it must be in the past. Su Ling'an, I just returned home with my sister and I came with two friends, so I won't bother you. Don't worry about us. The two of them waved their hands quickly. You go find your sister, we will find a place to eat, and then we can meet back in the atrium after eating. Su Ling'an was about to say something when the phone in her hand vibrated, and she quickly lowered her head to look at the screen. After reading it, she looked up at her two roommates who were still waiting for her to make a decision. My sister just asked if you would like to go there together. There are not many people, and most of them are young girls. The two of them were immediately moved after hearing this. Having eaten snacks packed by others before, it is also appropriate to go over and say thank you in person. It means, is this really convenient? This time Su Ling'an shook his head at them firmly. Sister won't ask if it's inconvenient. Then, together. Just a few days ago, I ate snacks packed by our sister, and I haven't said thank you personally yet. Hearing the words our sister, the corners of Su Ling'an's mouth twitched. He lowered his head and glanced at the exquisite gift in the other hand, and said silently in his heart, I hope you are really mentally prepared. After receiving the location sent by her sister, Su Ling'an took her two friends to the nearest elevator and directly pressed the button for the top floor of the mall. As soon as I pressed the button, I heard an exclamation from behind me, We're going to the top floor. The place where we eat won't be a banquet, right? Su Ling'an still remembered the name of the restaurant, turned around and nodded to his friend. That's indeed the name my sister sent me. The two people who had just checked out the restaurant in the shopping mall couldn't help but look at each other in confusion. They were looking for a place to eat later and naturally saw He Yan, the only restaurant on the top floor of the mall with a courtyard-style design. Other restaurants are gathered on the 2 floors below, but this one occupies an entire floor. It is top-notch in terms of scale and specifications. Of course, the price of a meal here is beyond their imagination. They just looked at the introduction on their mobile phones before, and they never thought about going to this restaurant to eat. Is it too late to say you don't want to eat anymore and exit the elevator? The fully transparent sightseeing elevator went all the way up, and people descended on each floor one after another. In the end, only the 3 of them were still on the elevator. When the elevator reached the top floor and opened, the 3 of them came out and saw a uniformed waiter waiting outside. "Good afternoon, 3 distinguished guests. Do you have an appointment?" "We have an appointment at Xiangfui Yuan." Hearing this, the waiter did not show any surprise. He still maintained a heartwarming smile and said, "Please follow me." The 3 of them told themselves to be reserved during the rest of the journey, but they still couldn't help but look around. Had they not just gotten off the elevator, they would have thought they were on flat ground. Tall trees with green leaves that are several meters high can be seen everywhere. There are lawns and gardens on both sides of the road, and there are even ponds and rock areas. There seems to be a small golf course ahead. Is this a place to eat or enjoy the scenery? However, they arrived at their destination before they even reached the golf course. Lu Zhengzheng learned from Zhang Lingzi that Su Ling'an was coming with 2 little sisters in the same dormitory, and was already waiting at the door. When he saw Su Ling'an, he waved his hand and said hello familiarly. "Sister Zhengzheng." The 2 people next to me were about to call them sister, but they quickly swallowed it back when they heard the words. Almost called the wrong person. "This is Sister Zhengzheng, my assistant." "Hello, come in quickly, Sister Zixi and the others are inside and chatting." Yard-style restaurants are not private rooms next to each other, but independent small courtyards with their own characteristics. Lu Zhengzheng led the 3 people holding hands through the door. After closing the door, he looked in the direction of the side hall. "Sister Zixi, and her classmates are here." Soon a voice came back from the small hall, "You take them in and sit down first, I will go there later." Lu Zhengzheng responded and turned around to explain to Su Ling'an. Sister Zixi said that the false eyelashes the makeup artist put on her this time was a bit uncomfortable, so she went to remove her makeup when she got back. Su Ling'an nodded in understanding. That thing is indeed uncomfortable to wear. She had noticed it when they had a close encounter on stage before. Although the false eyelashes did make her eyes look bigger, Sister Zixi would turn her eyes and close her eyes from time to time, obviously feeling uncomfortable. Going through the exquisitely maintained courtyard is the dining hall. There were not many people at the large round table that could seat 30 people. Even Su Ling'an only recognized one Tong Yu. But the first person to speak was Shen Chuiu, who was sitting next to Tong Yu. When she saw the 3 people coming in, she waved her hands familiarly. "Come on, sit down wherever you want." Tong Yu opened the chair beside her and said, "Those who are eating here today are not outsiders. And the 2 classmates, don't be restrained. Sit down first and drink some water." Su Ling'an took the lead and led the roommates to sit down, and looked at Shen Chuiu's eyes that had been smiling ever since he saw her. "Sister, do you know me?" "I didn't know her before, but now I know her. My name is Shen Chuiu. I'm a few years older than you. Just call me Sister Yu." Su Ling'an knew who the other party was as soon as he heard the name, so he called her Sister Yu obediently. Shen Chuiu pointed to the small gift from Shen Yu's Haiheng in her hand. "You haven't opened this gift yet." "I packaged it myself." Su Ling'an, it's not too late yet. The two roommates sitting next to Su Ling'an had just taken the teacup from Lu Zhengzheng and were about to take a sip to relieve their tension when they heard this conversation and almost spit out the tea in their mouths. Shan Yu's Haiheng's gifts are packaged by hand. What does this mean? And the name Shenchuiu, why does it sound so familiar? Before they could muster the courage to continue thinking, there were slow footsteps at the door. Suddenly, he subconsciously turned his head and looked over. When they saw who was coming, one of them could not hold back. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 565. Zhang Lingzi was wearing the same clothes as before at the event, but she had taken off all the makeup on her face when she was taking off false eyelashes next door. But this does not prevent him from being recognized at a glance. There was a pop sound, and she looked over subconsciously, and met two pairs of eyes that were obviously full of energy but were extremely dull at the moment. This reaction. She turned her eyes to Su Ling'an who was sitting next to her. Don't they know? Even Su Ling'an didn't expect that his two friends, would have such a big reaction when they saw his sister. He nodded a little guiltily, not yet. After hearing the conversation between the two finally woke up from their sluggish state. When Zhang Lingzi looked at them again, her body reacted faster than her brain, and she stood up from her seat. Sister, oh no, Sister Zhang, hello. Hello, sit down. Seeing that you all know me, I won't introduce myself. I'm Sister Anan. It's time to eat, so I asked you to come over and join us. Remember to eat well later. The two of them sat back down and nodded repeatedly. Okay, I must be full. Zhang Lingzi walked to the main seat and sat down. Seeing that everyone had arrived, she nodded to Tong Yu, let the kitchen serve the food. After the two sat down again, they couldn't help but grab Su Ling'an's hand under the table. Youngest. These two words are said with a bit of gritted teeth. On their way here, they expected to see a rich lady later, but they never expected that the other party would be Zhang Lingzi. The main goal is to be caught off guard. Now they also know why the name Shenchuiu seems familiar to them. They are the founder of Shanyu's Haiheng brand. They just watched the event held by him. Who would have thought that they would be eating at the same table with these two people at this moment? It feels like a dream. Su Ling'an shook the hands of his two friends and defended in a low voice, you didn't even ask. Two people. It seems to be true. But is this a question that should be asked or not asked? It wasn't until the delicious and exquisite food was put on the table, and the atmosphere was relaxed, especially since the person sitting at the main seat didn't pay any attention to them, and only regarded them as friends of their children, that the tension in their hearts slowly calmed down. Go down. Asterisk. It was clearly lunchtime, but Bai Shenjiao was sitting in the police station's inquiry room with a dark face. Even though there are famous lawyers in the family outside, my ears are still quiet. But just sitting here and waiting for the dealings outside to end so that he can get out as soon as possible was already unbearable for him. Bai Shenjiao didn't eat, and naturally neither did the policeman in charge of the case. Both parties are in no mood. After getting the name Bai Shenjiao from Han Das Han, the police knew that this case was difficult. They have to follow procedures and regulations, but there are always people who try to take advantage of loopholes in various ways. Even though they knew that the real murderer was the one sitting inside at the moment, they still couldn't arrest him directly without sufficient evidence. Both sides in this battle are already exhausted, but no one can retreat. Time is still passing by minute by minute. Bai Shenjiao looked up at the clock hanging in the inquiry room when the bell rang. It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. He was brought here by the police car at around 10 o'clock, and it had been almost 3 hours since he arrived. When did your own team of lawyers become so useless? He was about to stand up when he saw the policeman who was watching him and was about to stop him. There was a pop sound, and the two men stopped in unison. Bai Shenjiao lowered his head and looked at the Buddhist beads that suddenly broke in his hand. He begged this prayer bead from his grandma. He had always treasured it. Every time he felt restless, he would hold it in his hand and twist it. He changes the threads that thread the beads himself, never by others. If he remembered correctly, the line was changed less than a week ago. It is impossible for it to break suddenly. But now, as he watched the more than 100 small beads quickly fall from the broken line to the ground that was stepped on by people, with a series of tiny falling sounds, Bai Shenjiao felt that his heart was beating faster and faster. The more I jumped, the more panicked I lost my rhythm. Soon, all he had left was a brand new long rope. The cut was flat as if it had been cut with a knife. Beads were rolling everywhere around his feet, and some even rolled under the sofa and coffee table. The policeman watched Bai Shenjiao's expression change from stunned to confused, then he looked at a few beads that rolled to his feet. After hesitating, he knelt down and picked them up. "Mr. Bai." But after Bai Shenjiao saw the Buddhist beads in his palm, his already ugly face became even more ugly. The old lady has been caring for this prayer beads for a long time. He finally got it and never let anyone else touch it. Even the woman who had been favored by him for the longest time and wanted to touch her because of his favor was rejected by him, and he chopped off her hand mercilessly. Now, they are lying in the hands of the kind of people they hate the most. Bai Shenjiao felt the panic in his heart getting stronger and stronger. After hesitating for a long time, he finally forced himself to squat down and pick up the fallen beads one by one. Just as he frowned at the dirt on his hands, the door to the inquiry room was finally pushed open from the outside. The policeman standing outside the door said expressionlessly, "Mr. Bai, you can leave." Bai Shenjiao couldn't hold his composure anymore. He breathed a sigh of relief and walked out. Only when he passed by the assistant, who had already put on a pair of silver bracelets and looked gloomy, he paused and turned his head to look at him. "Step away." The bearer check had only the assistant's fingerprints on it. But after leaving the police station and getting into the car, he frowned and looked at the lawyer sitting in the front passenger seat. What's going on? Why did it take so long this time? He originally thought that even if he was summoned, the matter would be completed in less than an hour based on the ability of his lawyer, but now it has taken 3 times as long. The lawyer answered the question inappropriately. "Second young master, the old lady wants you to go back to your old house." Bai Shenjiao suddenly paused while wiping his fingers with a wet wipe. Came back to his senses, then hurry up and leave. The vehicle drove away, and police officers ran after it, but they could only see the exhaust fumes of a few luxury cars. "It's too late, forget it." He spread out the 3 missing Buddhist beads he picked up from the corner and turned back. After wiping his hands, Bai Shenjiao took out his cell phone that he had turned off before entering the police station. After he turned it on, a large amount of information poured in. Most of the people in the circle who heard about his summons came to ask if he was okay. Normally he would have replied, but now he was on the way to his old house and he was not in the mood. Then there was a report on all the work in the company. Seeing that everything was normal, I was relieved. But when he returned to the old house, he saw that the old housekeeper who had been following his grandma was waiting for him. He was heading not to the main courtyard where grandma lived but to the ancestral hall of their Bai family. Bai Shenjiao's face became paler. "Second young master, I can only send you here, please come in." Bai Shenjiao looked at the figure standing in the ancestral hall with his back turned to him. When he crossed the threshold, he stumbled due to nervousness. As soon as he stood firm, he heard a majestic voice enter his ears. "Kneel down. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry." Author, Press 11. Chapter 566. I am the lucky one today. Haha, I finally got to meet Zixi up close. Zixi even shook my hand. Although it didn't feel as soft as it looked, there was a strong feeling and a sense of security. I envy those in the front to be on the same stage with 1111, but I am only 4 or 5 meters away from 1111 in the front row, and I can see it clearly. I am really exquisite, and my aura is really amazing. I once again lament that there is a real gap between celebrities and ordinary people. I didn't expect that I would actually take hundreds of photos of Zixi during the 1-hour event. All in all, the trip was well worth it. This lucky person is here to show off the winning gift for a mini-game. It is a creative doll from the spokesperson of Shanyu's Haiheng. It was so thoughtfully made that I had to buy a transparent case to protect it. Underneath this comment is a series of envy. I just asked the customer service of the official website. The endorsement peripherals are not yet on sale, and the dolls are limited edition. Are you looking for a big purchase? Think about it. Su Linggan looked at the two roommates with burning eyes, so he had no choice but to take out the small gifts that he had planned to open when he returned to the dormitory. They are currently in one of the rest areas in the shopping mall. Fearing that it would delay her sister's business, after lunch, she took her two friends and said goodbye to her sister and went down to the mall to accept the late interrogation from her friends. Two roommates had just followed Zhang Lingzi's account. When they were busy clicking likes on their mobile phones, they happened to see someone posting gifts for lucky viewers online, so they focused on the one that the youngest had not yet opened. The gift box was slowly opened under the gaze of 3 pairs of eyes. What I saw at first glance was the doll that someone posted online before, and there were other things besides it. Put out other key pendants, mugs with the spokesperson's cartoon images printed on them, and other peripheral items one by one. There is also an envelope-style bag at the bottom. Su Linggan opened it carefully and took out the neatly folded items inside, his eyebrows condensed. This is the Shanyu's Haiheng's hand-painted silk scarf. This is a big deal. I heard that this scarf is only for giving away and not for sale, but the conditions for gifting are not clearly stated, and each scarf is unique in style. Enan, please open it and see what kind of pattern is hand-painted on it. Su Linggan was urged by the two people to carefully unfold the death machine. In fact, she knew who had written the calligraphy on it before it was unfolded. She couldn't be more familiar with the word sister. Its calligraphy is this: a new series, which calligraphy master did Shanyu's Haiheng hire? It's my sister's word. The two people who are still appreciating the calligraphy seriously. After a moment of silence, the two reached out and patted Su Linggan's shoulders with some comfort. For such an outstanding sister, Enan must be under a lot of pressure. Su Linggan. The few people who stayed at the banquet are drinking tea and chatting. There are already entries about this event on Hot Searches, which shows that our brand event was quite successful. But this Hot Search is number 1. A large ancient tomb suddenly appeared in the hinterland of the desert in Liangchuan. Tong Yu's eyes moved from the mobile phone screen to Zhang Lingzi's face. I don't know if the place where you filmed before is far from the ancient tomb that was discovered. Zhang Lingzi didn't have the habit of constantly scrolling through her mobile phone to read Hot Searches. She was thinking about something while drinking tea when she noticed Tong Yu's eyes turning over her. Ancient tomb. Yes, Tong Yu pointed to her mobile phone, which was still on the table. It is now number 1 on the hot search list. Experts there said this is the largest and strangest tomb discovered in recent years. Someone also revealed that something extraordinary appeared in it, and I remembered that you were filming in the desert over at Liangchuan. Zhang Lingzi picked up her phone and clicked on the hot search. She saw that the entry about discovering ancient tombs was several times more popular than the second most searched one. When I clicked on it, I saw the photographed excavation site of the ancient tomb, but the key locations were all mosaic-ed. She zoomed in on the picture and saw several familiar faces among the people captured in the aerial photography. It's Su Zhao and the others. It's there, but it's quite far away. It also said that the largest petrified tree in the world was found in an ancient tomb, which is really amazing. If you finish the photo a few days later, maybe you can still go to this ancient tomb. Look around. John Lindsay. Can she say that she has already gone around here and is guaranteed to be more familiar with this ancient tomb than the archaeological experts who are excavating the ancient tomb? As for the petrified tree, she had climbed up and down the tree. He nodded with some regret on his face. It's indeed a pity. After discussing the newly discovered mysterious tomb for a while, everyone turned the topic to the upcoming International Fashion Festival. John Lindsay listened incessantly, but her mind was preoccupied with the progress of solving Bai Shenjiao. Today's 3-hour summons meant that no information could be sent out or received, which was equivalent to 3 hours of near isolation from the outside world. In fact, there are many things that can be done. For example, take advantage of the 3 hours of information isolation that Bai Shenjiao has been guarding against for those little tricks, bypass all obstacles, and directly hit the head of the Bai family, Mrs. Bai. This is the real purpose of her and Shen Yunqing, to knock down the mountain and shake the tiger. The phone under my finger suddenly vibrated. John Lindsay picked up her phone and clicked on the message Shen Yunqing sent her. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Mrs. Bai held a banquet. John Lindsay looked at the time in the upper right corner of the screen. It's 2:30 in the afternoon. She sighed inwardly. It seems that people tend to be soft-hearted when they get old. Go. If I don't want to go, I will refuse. Go. I want to see Bai Shenjiao's current situation, take some photos or videos, and send them to Xinyuan. Good. In the Bai family ancestral hall. Bai Shenjiao's upper body was bare, and there was not a single piece of good flesh on her back. Even the corners of his mouth were bleeding. He accidentally bit his tongue while enduring the pain. His eyes were red and he looked at his grandma who was sitting motionless with her eyes closed. Another whip fell on his back. When the whip flew up, it was not only stained with blood but also brought up pieces of flesh. He could no longer hold up and pushed his hands to the ground. He felt that even breathing was painful. Old lady, it's 50 lashes. Mrs. Bai paused while twirling the beads, her lips trembled, and then she said, "Continue." The old butler in charge of the caning hesitated for a moment but said nothing, gritted his teeth and cracked the whip again. It's just that after a few throws this time, Bai Shenjiao couldn't even kneel down, and he was lying on the cold ground in a state of embarrassment. "Grandma. If you don't want to die, just hold on to these 100 lashes. Why?" He was in a daze from the pain now, but he was still puzzled. "Although I deliberately hid the things I did from my grandma, as the head of the Bai family, my grandma couldn't possibly not notice it at all. In the past, I ignored him and didn't bother to talk to him. Why was he so mercilessly punished this time? When it's night and you can still stand up, you'll know why I punished you. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry." Author, Press 11. Chapter 567. Chapter 567, The Bitter Meat Scheme. Before the 100 lashes were finished, Bai Shenjiao fell to the ground and passed out. The old housekeeper stopped his whip and silently asked the old lady who was still twirling the beads with her eyes closed for instructions. After a long time, I heard a sigh, "Keep fighting." The old butler's grey eyebrows couldn't help but tremble, and he raised his hand and raised his whip. Actually, he was quite surprised that the second young master couldn't even survive 100 lashes. "Now that I am old, my ability to handle family punishment is much lighter than before. I thought that the second young master could withstand these 100 lashes." The whip fell on the back again. Even if the person fainted, the muscles still spasmed unconsciously, accompanied by the old lady's voice that she hated the iron. "It's not that I don't know about his slutty ways. Over the years I indulged a little because he was the second child's only child. I didn't expect that one day I, Tang Jiayun, would indulge in such a bastard. It's better to hit him harder, otherwise, even I won't be able to save his life." The old housekeeper only knew that his friend who was on duty at the Bai family's old house today personally brought a tall young man in. He went directly into the old lady's yard and left after more than half an hour. Although he is the housekeeper of this old house and the old lady's confidant, he doesn't know everything. All he knew was that after the young man left, the old lady's face looked uglier than ever, and he was so frightened that he was almost ready to call the family doctor to guard her. Then he asked the second young master to come back. By this point, he guessed that the second young master was causing trouble, and even asked someone to report it directly to the old lady, which made the old lady so angry. But when he received 100 lashes later, he found that his guess was conservative. How much trouble must have been caused for the old lady to say such a thing? When the 100 lashings are over, even the old housekeeper will feel sore. Not to mention Bai Shenjiao, who was lying on the ground and his breath was weak. To put it bluntly, he was no better than a dead dog. Calling the family doctor waiting outside the ancestral hall, Tang Jiayun ordered, "Give him medicine. He must wake up and be able to stand before 5 o'clock in the afternoon." The family doctor looked at Bai Shenjiao's back. "This is making things difficult for me." But who allowed himself to receive the old lady's high salary? However, she still asked for permission. "Old madam, is there any way I can do it?" "Yes. That's okay." While Bai Shenjiao was being treated by the family doctor and her assistants for the whiplash on her back, preparations were being made in the reception hall of the Bai family's old house to host a banquet for distinguished guests. The old housekeeper has also arranged countless banquets, large and small, but this time the banquet was not only directed by the old lady, but the standards were also higher than ever before. This made him more curious about the guests who were coming next. When it was less than 4:30 in the afternoon, the old lady asked him to wait in person at the gate of the old house. Now even if the old lady hasn't said who the guest is, the old housekeeper is ready to receive it with the most solemn etiquette. Even before rushing to the gate, he went back to his residence to change into a new suit and combed his gray hair, trying to leave the best impression on the guests. However, compared to the grandness on the Bai family's side, Zhang Lingzi's side seemed much more casual. After returning home from Heian, she took a nap first, woke up and went to the balcony to bask in the sun and read a book for a while. After receiving a call from Shen Yunqing, she got up, changed into a set of comfortable clothes and went downstairs. She didn't even look at the nice and dignified clothes. Anyway, today's banquet is not for eating at all. The reason why they brought what Bai Shenjiao did to MRS Bai instead of directly handing it over to the relevant departments was to see MRS Bai's choice. Hypologies, but still selfless. These are two completely different solutions. If it's the latter, then everything will be fine and their subsequent actions will be saved. They only need to supervise. If it's the former, it will be a bit troublesome. But no matter what MRS Bai chooses, Bai Shenjiao's fate will not change. This is the ending she had planned for Bai Shenjiao from the beginning after reading the information that Shen Yunqing found. However, seeing that the old lady Bai specially hosted a banquet, it is more likely that she wants to protect her children and grandchildren. Then this banquet is naturally not a good one. Asterisk. The low-key black car was parked at the front entrance of an old-fashioned mansion. The old housekeeper who was already guarding the door suddenly became energetic, rubbed his hands and stepped forward quickly. But before he could reach the car door was opened from the inside, and a young man in a black tang suit with a stand-up collar came out. It is obviously a bit of an old-fashioned style, but when worn on this person, it looks particularly stable and elegant, making people subconsciously want to ignore the other person's youthful face. But the old housekeeper didn't dare to ignore it. After seeing the appearance of the person getting off the car, he was stunned for a moment, and then he felt a little enlightened. There are not many people in the entire empire who can be treated so grandly by the old lady, but the youngest head of the Shen family in front of him is definitely one of them. And it's still a heavyweight. It turns out to be Mr. Shen. Before he finished speaking, he saw the head of the Shen family nodded slightly towards him, and then walked towards the car door on the other side. The old housekeeper immediately swallowed back his invitation to come in and followed her with his eyes. It would have to be someone who could allow the head of the Shen family to open the door in person. Zhang Lingzi didn't wait for Shen Yunqing to open the door for her and finish sending the message to Tong Yu. She took her mobile phone and pushed the door open and got out of the car. Turning his head, he met a pair of somewhat astonished eyes. He raised his eyebrows. Old housekeeper. He looked at the girl who got out of the car wearing a bright lemon yellow sweatshirt with two white pom-poms hanging from the bottom of the drawstring of the hat. She was wearing white sweatpants and casual shoes. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. Zhang Lingzi got out of the car and walked to Shen Yunqing's side, shook his hand first, and then let go when she felt the temperature was okay. Mr. Shen, who is this? When the old housekeeper saw the person for the first time, he thought he was a junior in Mr. Shen's family, but when he saw the other person shook Mr. Shen's hand without any scruples, and when he walked over, Mr. Shen was even half a step behind. The speculation was thrown out of his mind. The longer a family has a long history, the more rules they have. The Shen family has a much longer history than the Bai family, so it is impossible for them to have less rules than the Bai family. That can only mean that this girl, who is really casually dressed, is not Mr. Shen's sister or something like that. I am Zhang Lingzi. Ginger. The old housekeeper subconsciously thought about whether there was a big family named Zhang in the capital, but he didn't think about it before he could. Is Bai Shenjiao still here? Meeting the eyes of the Lady Zhang in front of him, the old housekeeper stopped thinking and nodded subconsciously and replied, yes. Zhang Lingzi smiled slightly, that's good. She can't wait to see what kind of cruel trick the old lady Bai wants to use to save her grandson. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 568. Please lead the way. Mr. Shen, Miss Zhang, please come this way. The grandly decorated living room is right in front of you. The old housekeeper who led the way also wanted to say how much his old lady attached great importance to this banquet. She started preparing it early in the morning and even brought out tea leaves that were so precious that even the Bai family treasured them. As a result, when I turned around, I saw two identical indifferent eyebrows, and I was choked when I spoke. Zhang Lingzi stepped over the threshold. At a glance, I saw the elegant old woman standing in the hall. Hair of silver white hair is with an emerald hairpin. There is also a delicate emerald lapel hanging on the dark green dark pattern cheongsam. It can be seen that it is the same stone as the emerald on the hairpin. It can be said that it is written with sophistication and solemnity from head to toe. It's a pity that she didn't like this grand ceremony. Tang Jiayun was also looking at the girl who walked into the living room before Shen Yunqing, the head of the Shen family. She is dressed casually and is dressed casually. This dress does not look like she is attending a banquet but going out for fun. If the younger members of the family were so casual in front of her, she would have scolded him and gone back to reflect. But now, when she saw the girl's eyes after coming in, her first reaction was that she felt guilty. This feeling made her heart beat suddenly and she became short of breath for no reason. Shen Yunqing followed Zhang Lingzi in. When he saw Mrs. Bai, he nodded slightly and said, Mrs. Bai. Tang Jiayun finally came back to her senses and looked away from the bright lemon yellow as if to escape. Mr. Shen, who is this? Even though she was dressed casually, neither the old housekeeper nor Mrs. Bai could ignore this young girl. I am Zhang Lingzi Mrs. Bai, why don't you see your grandson? The old housekeeper didn't know Zhang Lingzi's name, but after Tang Jiayun received the information sent to her by Shen Yunqing, she sent someone to personally investigate what her grandson had done. After all, the second son's family is quite well behaved in front of her. Even if he acts a little wildly due to his background, he is not so lawless in private. Time was tight, and we could only investigate recent events, but the result of the investigation was a slap in the face. The name Zhang Lingzi also appeared once in the investigated information. She didn't pay much attention when she saw it. She was just a friend who had visited the victim. But now, she still doesn't know that the other person is not what she thought, he is just a little star in the entertainment industry. Even now, she couldn't help but wonder if it was the other party's arrangement that Shen Yu was summoned. She received the information, and the current situation happened. If this is really the case, does her family Shen Yu really have a way to survive? Zhang Lingzi watched the old man's face change in front of him, and turned his head to exchange glances with Shen Yunqing. Bai Shenjia was used to behaving recklessly and was designed to get into the pit step by step. She never expected that Han Das-han would be let go by her. But the old lady in front of me can be considered a mature woman. After knowing her name, she will probably be able to figure out all the joints quickly. But so what, if I want to move her, not only do I have no door, I don't even have a window. Go and fetch Shen Yu. The old housekeeper nodded and left. Mr. Shen, Miss Zhang, please sit down and have a cup of tea first. Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing sat down, picked up their teacups and took a sip. Hearing some slow footsteps, they all turned to look over. When I saw clearly that Bai Shenjia was being supported by the old housekeeper, his face distorted with every step he took, blood was seeping out of the white thick clothes he was wearing, and his face was so pale and haggard that he could not see. He suddenly thought of the purpose of his coming here. Immediately put down the teacup and took out my mobile phone from the pocket of my sweater. First, I took several pictures in a row, and then recorded a video of him slowly moving this way. Tang Jiayun. She was so stunned that she even forgot about feeling sorry for her grandson. What is Miss Zhang doing? This is the first time in her life that she has seen someone taking photos with their mobile phone in front of her. Han Jiaojiao was so injured by him that she is still lying on the hospital bed unable to move. Now that Bai Shenjiao is in such miserable condition, I just took some photos and sent them to her, which should make her feel better. Tang Jiayun. Her lips trembled for several seconds before she could hold back what she wanted to say. Bai Shenjiao, who was walking slowly towards the side, suddenly raised his head and looked into the hall. That voice. When he met Zhang Lingzi's cold expression and looked at him with a mocking expression, he suddenly felt like his head was exploding with a bang. Hearing the sound of gritting teeth, the old housekeeper asked, "Second young master." It's okay. The muscles in his back suddenly tightened after seeing Zhang Lingzi, and the pain immediately intensified. Bai Shenjia breathed heavily for a few times, then reluctantly gritted his teeth and spoke. He only wanted to know one thing now: how could Zhang Lingzi do this, at this? Do you know Miss Zhang? Miss Zhang and Mr. Shen are guests invited by the old lady. Although the old lady only invited Mr. Shen, the old housekeeper always felt that Miss Zhang was more powerful than Mr. Shen, so she directly added the person, and even put him in front of Mr. Shen when solving doubts. When he heard that Grandma had invited him, and now she brought him here, Bai Shenjia felt that not only his back hurt, but his head also started to hurt. Zhang Lingzi, what is her identity? I don't know either, but I think this Miss Zhang has a close relationship with Mr. Shen. Hearing the name Mr. Shen twice in a row, Bai Shenjia reluctantly turned his attention away from Zhang Lingzi and looked at the profile of the man sitting next to her. As if he noticed someone looking at him, the man who had been drinking tea quietly with his eyebrows lowered put down his teacup and looked sideways. When their eyes met, Bai Shenjia's heart suddenly jumped. Although he does whatever he wants based on his family background and wealth, he also has a very clear limit in his heart. What kind of people can he let himself manipulate at will, and what kind of people must not be messed with? He has always strictly abided by this boundary, so that he can get along well every time. To him, Han Jiaojiao was the former, so the person sitting in the hall now was the latter. But now, he felt panicked that this boundary had been accidentally broken by himself. The old housekeeper's arm was tightly grasped by Bai Shenjiao. "Uncle Hang, why is Shen Yunqing here?" This question stumped the old housekeeper. "Second young master, I don't know either, but Miss Zhang and Mr. Shen came together. After Miss Zhang arrived, she asked if you were there. I guess they came for you." Bai Shenjiao felt that the last trace of luck in his heart was shattered with these words. In the tea room in the morning, he asked his assistant to find out that the person who encouraged Han Jiao's friend named Pei Xinyuan to call the police was Zhang Lingzi. He also thought that after the event was over, he would ask his assistant to bring Zhang Lingzi over and let her know that she was meddling in other people's business. And as a result, before he could tell his assistant, he was both summoned to the police station. His desire to retaliate against Zhang Lingzi did not change after he came out of the police station. Although nothing happened to him when he was summoned this time, the prayer beads he had always cherished were broken, and his capable assistant was imprisoned for his crime. The loss was not insignificant. Big. If he doesn't go back with revenge, he won't be able to swallow this breath. Even if he was called back to his old house by his grandmother and whipped without saying a word, he didn't associate these with Zhang Lingzi. In his opinion, a small star in the entertainment industry, even a top celebrity, is not even worthy of shining her grandma's shoes. Until now, everything he sees in front of him is like the world has turned upside down. Zhang Lingzi actually became grandma's guest. There has never been a moment when I realized it so clearly. He is finished. End of chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 569. Chapter 569. This is the true power of the whip. What Shen Yu did this time was indeed a bit excessive. Before you two came, I had already punished him with 100 lashes. Please remember what you can and shouldn't do. Tang Jiayun originally wanted to lay the groundwork first. In short, she just pulled down her face mask and put it on her face. Although Shen Yunqing is the same age as her grandson, she really doesn't dare to treat people as juniors. Compared with the Shen family, the Bai family is not just a little less rich, but also much weaker in other aspects. If those things that Bai Shenjiao did were handed over by Shen Yunqing personally, even if she sacrificed her old face, she didn't dare to say that she would be able to suppress the matter. But since the person arrived, this Miss Zhang, who still didn't know her identity, was casual and arrogant, and the words she said in front of her were not polite at all. Shen Yunqing hardly spoke, and seemed to have simply come to help hold down the battle. She knew that she might not be able to catch her. You can only give up this interruption and directly express your weakness. Zhang Lingzi took a sip of the tea that Shen Yunqing poured for her to moisten her throat, and then looked at Bai Shenjiao, who was standing in the hall without saying a word but pretending to admit her mistake, and chuckled. I think Mrs. by this first sentence is quite pertinent, but as for what follows. 100 lashes, is it definitely 100 lashes? It couldn't have been carried out by Mrs. by herself, otherwise how could the person still stand here? Furthermore, if I remember correctly, Bai Shenjiao will be 30 after this year. He is such an old man, and he still doesn't know what to do and what not to do. Here, she raised her hand and nodded at herself head, are you sure there's nothing wrong? Tang Jiayun, who was unceremoniously sorted out for her inappropriate remarks and openly ridiculed, said. She is so heartbroken. The old housekeeper helped Bai Shenjiao in and did not leave. The second young master was not allowed to sit down. He was afraid that one of them would fall and get injured if he lost his footing, so he simply stood aside and quietly helped support him. Hearing the heavy breathing in his ears, he turned his head and looked over, and saw the veins popping up on the second young master's forehead. Look at the old lady's action of reaching out to cover her heart. This Miss Zhang is really not polite at all. Why doesn't Madame Bai speak? Is it because she doesn't want to talk to me? Tang Jiayun forced a smile and said, Miss Zhang is joking. What I said just now is indeed inappropriate. However, when this person was young, he always made mistakes and corrected them, which is the best thing to do. As for the girl named Han Jiaojiao that Shen Yu offended 2 days ago, I asked him to apologize to the girl in person, and then transferred Miss Han to the hospital with the best medical resources, and I will bear all the subsequent treatment costs. Of course, there will be compensation as well. What do you think of this, Miss Zhang? After all, sending this to jail is only a temporary relief. People still have to make plans for the future, right? Seeing that his grandma, who had always been regarded as someone who could protect him, was showing weakness, Bai Shenjiao suppressed the humiliation and continued to promise, Miss Zhang, I know I was wrong, please give me a chance to change my ways. I am willing to take responsibility for Miss Han Jiaoqiao, marry her, and let her be the second wife of the Bai family. At this moment, he still didn't know how comprehensive the information Shen Yunqing gave to the old lady was. He thought it was only about the Han Jiaoqiao incident, so naturally he only thought about how to make up for Han Jiaoqiao. As for Mrs. Bai, she only talked about Han Jiaoqiao, just to avoid serious issues. Zhang Lingzi saw all the behavior of her grandfather and grandson, and suddenly her interest waned. A person who knows how outrageous his grandson's actions are and just wants to protect him. One that gave her no hint of genuine remorse. Should we say that we are worthy of being our descendants? She lowered her eyelashes and remained silent for a moment, just when her grandfather and grandson thought her attitude had relaxed. Where is the whip used to whip Bai Shenjiao? The old housekeeper, who was too busy to clean the whip and put it away, said, in the ancestral hall. Can you please help me, old man? The old housekeeper was about to ask the old lady for instructions, but his eyes were cut when he saw Miss Zhang sitting on the chair frowning at her, and suddenly she didn't dare to hesitate at all. Miss Zhang, wait a moment. Looking at the back of the old housekeeper, the grandfather and grandson left in a hurry. Has this steward forgotten whose steward he is? Why does Miss Zhang want a whip all of a sudden? Of course it is useful. Bai Shenjiao had unbearable pain in his back and could not help feeling cold at the same time. But grandma didn't say anything, and he didn't dare to leave even if he wanted to. As if he was afraid of missing Zhang Lingzi, the old housekeeper soon ran back with the whip. The whip has not had time to be cleaned, and I am afraid that Miss Jiang's hands will be stained. It doesn't matter, Zhang Lingzi said, reaching out and holding the only clean handle of the whip. Since she already knew the current attitude of the person in charge of the Bai family, she felt that there was no need to stay any longer. However, looking at Bai Shenjiao's face, which is still shameless even now, and feels that as long as he compensates the victim, it will be a great gift from heaven, she can't help but feel a little itchy. How is this different from those dudes in the previous generation whose fathers were officials and who took advantage of their family's power to act recklessly and disregard human lives? Since your hands are itchy, why bother? She threw her phone in the direction of Shen Yunqing and said, video the video for me. This was not the first time that Shen Yunqing saw Zhang Lingzi showing this expression, so he could naturally guess what she was going to do next. After taking the phone, he obediently turned on the video recording mode and pointed at the whip in Zhang Lingzi's hand. What are you going to do? Zhang Lingzi thought for a while and explained kindly, I think your Bai family's flogging is not very standard. I want you to see what real flogging is like. When the words fell, before anyone in the Bai family could react and didn't see clearly when she raised the whip, they heard a loud crack in the air. Then there was a howl that was not like a human voice. When he was in the ancestral hall before, Bai Shenjiao could still endure the 100 whips. But now that the whip fell on him unexpectedly, Bai Shenjiao thought that he was cut in half directly. The old housekeeper could not help but open his mouth. Honestly, the real caning method is not to let people kneel on the ground and be whipped on the back, but to be whipped directly like a top. Stop, stop. Tang Jiayun didn't know the strength of Zhang Lingzi, but just by looking at her grandson being whipped so miserably, she knew that the whip was much more powerful than the old housekeeper's before. Zhang Lingzi turned a deaf ear. No matter which direction Bai Shenjiao hid, she would be able to pull him back in the next second. No one dared to step forward to grab the whip. Just by hearing the loud cracking sound, one could imagine how painful it would be. It wasn't until Bai Shenjiao had no strength to hide anymore, or even to scream anymore, and his whole body seemed to be in a state of exhaling more air than inhaling, that Zhang Lingzi put down the whip. How many whips? Shen Yunqing, who was diligently recording the video and not forgetting to count, replied neatly, 12 lashes. It's only 12 lashes, how can it be so useless? Old housekeeper. I am indeed old, and 100 lashes cannot compare with the effect of 12 lashes. Zhang Lingzi, Tang Jiayun could no longer sit still and even stopped calling Miss Zhang, you are killing someone. Don't blame me. Zhang Lingzi felt comfortable again, and was in the mood to retort, the people he harmed were much worse than him, so why should I follow? Since the old lady wants to, if you want to protect your grandson, then let's wait and see. Just in time to let her see if the Bai family can really do anything. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 570. Leaving behind Mrs. Bai, who was so angry that she was trembling all over, Zhang Lingzi and Shen Yunqing left. Just after returning to the car, Zhang Lingzi looked back at the Bai family mansion behind her. She hit someone in someone else's house and felt a little aggrieved. Normally, she is happy to be an ordinary person, but when she encounters a situation like the Bai family, she still hopes to have the power of life and death in her previous life. Instead of just giving the culprit a beating like now. If the old lady of the Bai family intervenes and wants Bai Shenjiao to plead guilty, won't it be a lot of trouble? The deceased patriarch Bai still had some relatively high connections. Mrs. Bai may use them. Zhang Lingzi frowned immediately. She originally thought that this old lady could pull up the entire Bai family after her husband left. She must have so much skill. After all the things Bai Shenjiao did, if he was a clear-headed elder, he would naturally know how to deal with the unscrupulous descendants in the family to minimize the losses to the entire family. It will save them trouble by then, and they won't need to worry about such garbage anymore. But reality did not go in the direction she expected. It seems that the Bai family is still standing, not because of the ability of Mrs. Bai, but because of the legacy of the deceased old master Bai. Shen Yunqing nodded lightly, you can say that. If the old patriarch Bai was still here, Bai Shenjiao would not dare to do these illegal things. Can you resolve this matter before leaving? Nothing unexpected, it should be okay. The Bai family has the legacy left by the old patriarch Bai, and the Shen family also has the connections of the Shen family. The Bai family may feel that he will not use those connections to teach an unrelated Bai family member, but since His Majesty wants to handle this matter to the end, it is a top priority for him. And today in this line of work, it can be regarded as a direct break. Even if it was to prevent the Bai family from retaliating in the future, he would not let the Bai family go. Zhang Lingzi tapped the shoulder of the person next to him, then I'll have to work hard for you next. She dared to take action directly at the Bai family this time. Shen Yunqing's formation was naturally not in vain. Fortunately, someone in your hands has money, otherwise I would have to find a way to spend more time and kill him bit by bit. It's all yours too. Zhang Lingzi's eyes suddenly smiled, I like to hear this. By the way, let me take a look at the video you just took. Speaking, he opened the video. Looking at the total length of the video, it took less than 2 minutes for her to whip Bai Shenjiao into a lesson. This lasted less than 2 minutes. The video was shot well. Throughout the entire process, only the hand holding the whip was photographed, as well as Bai Shenjiao, who was whipped. It perfectly met her requirements and no additional editing was needed. I'll send it to Xin to make them both happy. Bai Shenjiao was summoned to the police station in the morning and came out safe and sound after lunch. The police officer Pei Xinyuan reported to must have also learned about this result from the police. I don't know how depressed this would be. Just as Zhang Lingzi guessed, Pei Xinyuan didn't even know how to tell Han Jiaojiao about the result. They all know that Han Das Han must have been instigated by Bai Shenjiao, and even the police know it. But there are people who are willing to take the blame, but there is still nothing they can do about Bai Shenjiao. But even though Pei Xinyuan didn't say anything, Han Jiaojiao had known her for several years, so how could he not see the anger and unwillingness she showed? With a little thought, you can imagine what happened. I can't help but feel gloomy. Sometimes the world is so unfair, and she is just unwilling to do so, so she is unlucky enough to have all these bad things happen to her. What else can I do but accept my fate? She wanted to say stop worrying about me. Now that we have reached this point and there is no other way but to accept it, then don't delay your promising career for a loser like her. There is no need to keep guarding her and enlightening her. She deserves it. I tried hard for a while, but I still couldn't make a sound out of my throat. Just when the two of them were looking at each other heartbroken, Zhang Lingzi's video was sent. Pei Xinyuan didn't even think about it. When he saw clearly who was being beaten in the video, his eyes suddenly widened. She looked over it twice before remembering to let her friends look at it too. Sister Zixi just sent this message: Bai Shenjiao was beaten. The person holding the whip was not photographed. Han Jiaojiao looked higher than Pei Xinyuan. She saw Bai Shenjiao wield a whip, and that memory was unbearable to look back on. Looking at Bai Shenjiao who was being whipped and screaming repeatedly, I felt so happy. It was so enjoyable that she watched it over and over again and still felt like she couldn't get enough. Until her eyes were tired from looking, she blinked at Pei Xinyuan. Pei Xinyuan stopped the video on the hand holding the whip, and then zoomed in several times. Sister Zixi only posted this video and didn't say who was wielding the whip, but the hand holding the whip looks familiar to me. Wait for me to compare. She still has several photos with Sister Zixi on her phone, as well as the brand event this morning, and many photos have been leaked online. Finally, she compared a close-up photo of Zhang Lingzi holding the microphone with the screenshots on the video. After a moment of silence, she said, if nothing else, the one who slapped Bai Shenjiao should be Sister Zixi herself. Han Jiaojiao. The doubts that suddenly popped up in their minds were very similar. How did Sister Zixi get to Bai Shenjiao and whip him with a whip? Also, who helped shoot the video? How about asking Sister Zixi? Han Jiaojiao hesitated for a moment, then moved her eyes left and right, and blinked again. Pei Xinyuan can now easily understand what her friends want to express. She doesn't need to ask more questions herself, she just needs to say thank you to Sister Zixi. I see. Sister Zixi, I enjoyed watching the video. Jiaojiao asked me to say thank you for helping her vent her anger. Zhang Lingzi waited for almost half an hour for news from Pei Xinyuan. She guessed that the two of them probably watched the video more than once to take so long. Yuri, welcome, let her recover well, this is just the beginning. Pei Xinyuan showed the message she received to Han Jiaojiao, it's just the beginning to beat people like this. Isn't Sister Zixi going to send people in again? Han Jiaojiao blinked, just in time, she thought so too. Asterisk. That's too cruel, the injury must be examined. The family doctor looked at Bai Shenjiao, who was unconscious and shivering from time to time, and then looked back at the changed old lady. I have always remembered him as a dignified and elegant old man, but this moment can only be described as angry and frustrated. She didn't know what to say, but she had to say it now. Old lady, it's useless to examine the injury. What did you say? Testing for injuries is useless. The dozen or so lashes that the second young master received on the back were painful but did not leave any traces. Even I don't understand how it was done. Even if the test was done, nothing could be found. End of chapter.